Hey, I'm really glad you stopped by my channel. Listen to this story I have prepared for you.
13 years ago, when I was a young girl and he was a boy working odd jobs, we tied the knot. We shared everything, from studying and working to saving up for our own apartment and renovating our cozy little abode. After 6 blissful years of marriage, like any other family, we began contemplating starting a baby. We attempted to conceive, but it proved to be unsuccessful. After 2 years of trying, we had no luck. I underwent tests, and the results came back normal. We hadn't even considered testing my husband, assuming the problem lay with me. However, after 6 more months of trying, I decided to secretly have him tested. I went to the hospital, but they requested that I return the following day to receive the results. The following morning, I received no update from the hospital. Assuming they were merely delaying, I had breakfast and left for work, leaving my computer at home. I never kept anything from my husband and had no passwords set up. When I returned home that evening, I was met with an irate husband. "Hello, my love. I'm home," I greeted him, but he remained silent. As I walked into the kitchen, I saw him scowling with rage. "You weren't going to tell me anything," he accused me. I knew exactly what he was referring to and didn't want to lie. "Did you see the letter?" I asked softly, feeling resentful. "Why didn't you say anything? Is it even acceptable for you to take these tests without informing me?" I remained silent, averting my gaze to the floor. "You don't stay silent," he yelled. "You know, my love, that things haven't been working out between us for a long time, and I wanted to understand why. It hurts me that every day I think the reason lies within me, and you decided to look for it in me." I tried to interrupt him, but he continued. "Of course you did. You just wanted to know how things really are. Go ahead, open the file and see for yourself. You wanted to find a reason in someone, and that someone is me. Fantastic, isn't it?" I was in shock as I opened the file and discovered that the reason was indeed him. He was infertile. When I looked into his eyes, I saw his sadness, disappointment, and anger at me and the situation. I was equally hurt by what I saw and went to hug him, but he pushed me away and went into the other room. He was always like that, trying not to show his emotions. He had always been a serious man, and that was probably the first time he refused to talk to me. I didn't know what would happen next. It had been a blow to both him and me, and we didn't speak for a week. Later that day, we had breakfast together, and he agreed to talk after work. We discussed our options and decided to try a few more. At first, everything seemed fine, but after a while, my husband became depressed. He had no mood, didn't want anything, and sometimes he would even get drunk despite being a non-drinker. He had always been an athlete and an avid sportsman. I suggested we see a psychologist together, but after the first session, we never returned. I knew something needed to change, but I didn't know how. I consulted with several doctors about artificial insemination, but I couldn't bring myself to make a decision. Then, I had a crazy and frightening idea that I had to do it. The past 3 years had taken their toll on me. My spouse and I had minimal communication between us. He walked around in a depressed state and often resorted to drinking. Although there were instances where we had a joyful and sober family life, it all came crashing down when we heard the happy news of our acquaintances and relatives expecting a baby. After 6 years of pushing my partner away from a genuine and sober lifestyle, I didn't consider his feelings when I found out I was pregnant. I made the decision to betray him without even knowing who it would be with. The only options I had were colleagues at work, who were young and handsome and even tried to court me. However, after weighing the advantages and disadvantages, I decided against taking the risk and looked for something more. I went through all of my colleagues who had children, but ultimately chose to have a short-term affair with a married man. I only wanted it to last a few months at most. I chose a married man because if I did become pregnant, he wouldn't have any doubts about his involvement with my child. It could have been more complicated with a bachelor, as he may have started asserting his rights as the father of my child. Out of all my colleagues, there were only 2 who were married with children. After careful consideration, I found that one of them perfectly fit my preferences in terms of family and lifestyle. I then made the decision to seduce them, using all the methods I remembered from my youth. However, my colleague remained faithful to his wife and did not give in to my provocations. I then invited him to a dinner at a dark restaurant. As he arrived, I waited for him at the table, but he seemed to think it was just a business meeting. "Hi, John," I said. "Hi, Julia. This is a unique place, isn't it?" he replied. "I was recommended to come to this restaurant, so I thought I'd give you a call," I said with a smile. "How are we going to talk about work here?" he asked. "It's Friday night. You need to rest at some point. Have a seat." We ordered our food and began to chat. Although he initially stuck to the topic of work, I am a very sociable person, so we eventually moved on to more personal topics. To my understanding, he didn't seem to mind. As we were discussing intimate matters, I gradually moved my foot towards his leg. "What are you doing?" he asked quietly. I remained silent and continued. I knew that eventually he would give in to me. "You know I have a family and kids," he said. "Stop it," he said as he began to move my foot away. I remained silent. "You know what's great about this restaurant? There's room for 2, just like you wanted, and there's light," I said. "I don't need any room," he replied. "Yes, you're beautiful, but nothing can happen between us," he said in a calm and quiet voice. "Come on, I'll show it to you," I persisted. Eventually, he gave in and we went to the room. Afterward, I explained my situation to him. Although he was shocked, he said that he didn't mind helping as long as there wasn't a problem. Once was enough, and I was thrilled to find out I was pregnant. John eventually found out, but didn't react, which was a relief. When I told my husband, he began to shout and asked whose baby it was. "Ours," I replied. He thought I was joking or having an affair, but I knew that lying would improve our lives. He eventually believed me and was overjoyed. It was the first time in 6 years that I had seen him so happy. John and I began a passionate romance, which wasn't planned, and we became lovers. Although it sounds terrible, I enjoyed it. My husband never satisfied me in bed, so it was a significant benefit for me. Our affair lasted a long time, and it was incredible. 9 months later, I gave birth to a baby girl, just as my husband and I had hoped. I had no intention of ending my relationship with John, and 10 years passed without any issues. Our daughter started attending school, and my husband never suspected or guessed anything. However, one day, while we were celebrating our wedding anniversary with friends, my husband decided to look up which registry office we had gotten married in. As he sifted through the documents, he stumbled upon a receipt that indicated my coworker, who I had a child with, had no legal claim to our daughter. He inquired rather harshly, "Whose is it?" I was taken aback and replied, "I don't know how it got there. It's not mine." He accused me of lying and insinuated that he was slowly piecing together what had happened. However, I explained that it was our baby, but I honestly wasn't sure whose it was. Despite my denial, he escorted his friends out silently, then sat down in the kitchen and threatened to pack up my belongings and kick me out if I didn't confess. I realized that lying would serve no purpose, so I confessed. "I'm sorry. I did it for us. It was okay. Let's not ruin what we have." He was livid and responded, "Are you insane? You cheated on me, you bitch. For us." You're out of your mind." He went on to explain how he wanted me to return to my former self and not continue down the path I was on. I found it challenging to see he in that state every day, which is why I decided to sleep with someone I shouldn't have. He wanted to be happy with me and not have to face the reality of me being with someone else. He was in disbelief, saying, "What an abomination you are. I lived with you for so long and didn't know you cheated on me. Every morning I woke up with you and smiled, not knowing you were sleeping with someone else." I sat in silence, unsure of what to say. My fear consumed me. He demanded, "Who is he? What does it matter now?" I replied, "He's my colleague. He has a family. After that time, we had nothing. I love only you, and I did it for you." He was incredulous. "Can you even hear yourself? I'm sorry." He stormed out abruptly, requesting his picture and last name via text. I knew he was heading there, but I trusted he wouldn't resort to violence. I sent him the information, unsure of what would happen next. That evening, he didn't return home, and his phone was unresponsive. I was concerned, but tried not to panic too soon. The following morning, he was waiting for me at the entrance of my workplace. However, I soon realized he wasn't waiting for me. As John walked behind me, he punched him in the nose, causing him to lose consciousness. After the incident, John was taken to the hospital via ambulance, but fortunately he was okay. However, he later disclosed our relationship to John family. His wife was a powerful woman who used her influence to get him fired from his job. It didn't happen immediately, but eventually John's wife's bossy father succeeded in getting him fired. Following this, I didn't see my husband around his workplace anymore. When I returned home, I realized that our daughter wasn't there either. Since there was a quarantine, we didn't take her to kindergarten, and I sensed that something was amiss. My husband wasn't answering his phone, which was understandable. When I contacted his parents, they informed me that he wasn't there and I couldn't fathom where he could be hiding. I waited for a few days, but when I couldn't wait any longer, I decided to go to the police, even though I knew nothing good would come out of it. Unfortunately, my fears proved to be true, and the police couldn't offer any helpful information. Despite filing a report, I was disappointed and scared, as the thought of not seeing my daughter again was unbearable. After a few days, I received a call informing me that they had located my missing loved ones. They were not too far from the city, and I accompanied the police to the location. Unfortunately, the man who took them threatened my daughter and me that day. I had hoped that he would surrender his daughter and that it would be the end of it. However, I knew that it was unlikely that the police would resolve the issue because of his legal status as the father. Dishearteningly, things did not get better, and I was left hoping for a good outcome. But as it turned out, the police were unable to take any action, and he remained a danger to us. He knew me well, and it seemed like he had nowhere else to go. My partner and I had a significant amount of savings in the bank. I had hoped to use this money to move out of our home and escape the constant bickering and shouting, which was negatively affecting my child's life. This morning, I woke up with the firm intention of leaving. However, when I arrived at the bank, I discovered that all our money was gone. He had stolen it. I was left with nothing, having already lost my job. The money that I had hoped would secure my daughter's future was now gone. I was at a loss as to what to do. Upon returning home, my belongings were scattered by the front door, and he was inside but refused to answer. That was the moment I realized that I needed to take action. I called John and he picked up the phone. "Are you home?" I asked. "Don't even think about it. I want nothing to do with you anymore. You have taken everything from me. I am left with nothing and I don't know how to go on living, and all you do is call and ask if I'm home? That's bullshit." After our conversation, he blocked me and I couldn't reach him anymore. Soon after, my husband took my child away, and I was forced to live in a basement with a kind woman who allowed me to stay in exchange for cleaning her house. I was only able to see my daughter once a month, if I was lucky. I had nothing but a secondhand jacket that I purchased from a thrift store. I was unable to find a regular job, and I had to settle for working as a housekeeper. This was the only source of income I had. John's situation was even worse. His wife had won a lawsuit that prevented him from seeing his children, and he was now living with his parents. He was in an awful state. Our once fairy tale life had turned into a living nightmare. We never could have imagined that one mistake would lead to us paying such a high price. It's hard to say how it all could have ended differently. Looking back, I'm not sure what I could have done differently. I had done everything for my husband and myself, waiting patiently for our daughter's arrival. And yet, I can't even see her now. She doesn't have the desire to call me Mom. Knowing what happened, it hurts me deeply, but I also understand that it's impossible to change the past.
Great story. You think so too? Leave your opinion in the comments. And please subscribe to my channel. See you soon, friends. Bye-bye.